Why did the voting public select these finalists? Let's keep the conversation going.
There's so much great work.
And the expectations are when you come to the table and you come to ArtPrize, you're going to bring it.
And everyone loves a sturgeon, but again... Really?
It is here today, and could it be gone tomorrow?
I'd like to smash your artwork with a sledgehammer, and you make it feel good.
I feel bad for nature in this one. Like, I really do.
Even poignant comments must fall to the bell. Critical Discourse, why these finalists continues. Good evening and welcome to Critical Discourse, the home of charged conversation at ArtPrize, powered by ITC. My name is Todd Herring, and we're returning tonight with 3 new art experts to help us understand what it is about 20 works of art that managed to become finalists in the 8th annual edition of ArtPrize, the world's largest art competition. Tonight, we are asking why these finalists, or WTF for short. And we look to you at home as well to help us. So send us your thoughts using the hashtag ArtPrizeWTF. You can use it everywhere hashtags are accepted. Please follow along on Twitter or add your comment to the ArtPrize Facebook page as well. Last night, we talked about the 2-dimensional and installation categories. If you'd like to hear all of the bombast, outrage, and critique from last night's broadcast, go to artprize.org/about/film or on woodtv.com. On deck tonight, we're going to be discussing 3-dimensional and time-based. Joining me, my co-host and moderator, is ArtPrize Director of Exhibitions and Resident Translator for Art World Jargon. Please welcome Mr. Kevin Beist. And now let's introduce tonight's critics, 3 art experts eager to aim their searing critique at each one of the finalists' work. Joining us tonight, we have Alice Grace Stites, Chief Curator at 21C Museum Hotels, Neil Barclay, Director of the Contemporary Arts Center of New Orleans, and Gregory Volk, art critic based in New York City. Let's hear it for our panelists. Welcome. All right, let's take a quick look at how we got here today. Let's go back almost 2 weeks to opening day when ArtPrize 8 kicked off. There were 1,453 works of art eligible for the $500,000 in prizes. Only 5 days later, the art experts serving as this year's category jurors narrowed the field down to the 20 juried award finalists eligible for $250,000 in prizes. Alongside the jurors, you, the voting public, cast hundreds of thousands of votes to determine the 20 artist entries deemed worthy of the $250,000 in public vote awards. And on Sunday, we revealed the ArtPrize 8 public vote final 20. So now we have 20 finalists chosen by expert jury, 20 chosen by public vote. And there is one entry that is both a public vote and juried award finalist, and tonight we'll be discussing that entry. You can find the full list of 39 finalists on artprize.org/leaderboard. You can cast your votes for the public vote finalists until 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, October 6th. Come downtown, register to vote to get a free ArtPrize bag, thanks to Meyer, and cast your votes for your favorite finalists. If you want to find out who will win the $500,000 in prizes, tune in this Friday night to Wood TV 8 at 7 o'clock or join us at the public viewing party at Rosa Parks Circle in downtown Grand Rapids. All right, to keep things moving along, I will be keeping time, and when you hear this bell, it's time to wrap up. All right, don't question the bell. When the bell rings, we zip it and we move on, okay? Wow, all right.
Okay.
It's a very powerful bell. Okay, all right. First is the 3-dimensional category, and the juror who selected the Jury Award finalists for the 3-dimensional category is Omar Lopez Chahoud, Artistic Director and Curator of Untitled Art Fair in Miami Beach and San Francisco. So up first in the 3-dimensional category is a public vote finalist, Invasive Species by Shiny Seed, displayed outside Barnes & Thornburg LLP at the PNC Bank Building. Shiny Seed is a life-size tree wrapped in aluminum wire with fruit made out of textured glass and illuminated by LEDs. Kevin, is this just a big shiny thing, or is it the tree of the future?
Yeah, okay, so it's sparkly, it glows, it's right outside your hotel. We saw it this morning. Tell me, what was your reaction? Gregory, let's start with you.
First, I'm super happy to be here. Thanks a lot. It's wonderful. ArtPrize is great, and it's so excellent for Grand Rapids to do this. You should all really be commended. When I was much younger, I was given advice by a very good poet who's also a world-class dealer in old master paintings. I was his poetry secretary, transcribing his poems. His name's Stanley Moss, and he told me one day, Gregory, the devil generalizes, but the angels are specific. And I was like, okay. And that's reverberated for me for a long time. I think the problem with this work is it's profoundly general. A generic tree that does not particularly distinguish and fits easily with all sorts of other public art that's developed around the world, in which basically versions of nature are made in different cities. So it's not nearly specific enough, driving enough to rivet my hilarious soul.
That's a good point. So, anybody else? Quick thoughts?
I just wanted more from it, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's, as you said, it's very generic. I suspect it's more beautiful at night, perhaps, and has a different kind of glow to it. But in general, I just thought, okay.
All right, there we go. You call it that kind of a tree. If that's a general tree for you, I'd love to see the kind of forests you're normally walking through. All right, the next three-dimensional Jury Award finalist is a series of sculptures made with found fragments, wood, rope, house paint, and other hardware, titled Support Services 1, 2, 3 by Bailey Romaine, showing at 50 Monroe Avenue. The first finalist in the City Flux Art, Architecture, and Grand Rapids exhibition. Found objects, Kevin, isn't that just code for garbage? And why is it such a popular medium?
We'll see. So a very different work here. This one does not have LEDs. It does not sparkle or shine. It's some very mundane, kind of unmonumental construction materials, and situated in an exhibition that's very much about architecture and urbanism. What was your take on it, Alice?
Well, I think it's a very interesting topic. It's a very timely topic, looking at how the cities are growing today in DIY architecture. Found materials have a great history and legacy in art. However, this piece was lacking any kind of real poetry for me, and was extremely derivative of looking back at the work of someone like Richard Tuttle, but without that kind of poetry, and certainly maybe a great found object artist like Jessica Stockholder. This young artist, like many young artists, need to go back and do a little more homework and understand the tradition in which they're working before setting out on such an ambitious course.
Greg, did you agree with that?
I agree with that very much, but I also think that there are moments, sort of like micro moments in this work that are really promising and engaging. And I just think that the artist should go like much deeper in terms of also the visual poetry of this. By the way, found objects are not just garbage. This is about like transformation of the mundane into something completely important. But I think the artist could really go much deeper into that.
All right, there you go. Critique for the artwork, but encouragement for the artist. Next is a three-dimensional public vote finalist, Victory by The Chairman, showing at Homewood Suites. The Chairman construction stands 16 to 20 feet tall and is made of pieces from all over the world, including Italy, China, Poland, Slovenia, and Czechoslovakia. The piece brings awareness to disenfranchised groups who need victory. Kevin? A big thing made out of little things. Is this art, or is it just ArtPrize?
Yes, it's a thing made of things, for sure. So these things are enormous. Yeah. Alice has the same look on her face as when we walked through. Describe the experience of walking into this space.
It was as if a nightmare was coming to life for me. This, to me, is a nightmare. They are enormous. They are extremely masculine. Their message is one of giant conquerors and kind of false myth-making. I will let others continue.
Neil, what did you think of the poems? Can we talk
The
about
what? The poems?
There's these little texts by each of the 7 figures.
I don't think they're very poetic. And for me, I think the piece primarily suffers from how it's installed, and then the story that it's attempting to tell, and all the implications of those stories that are not realized. You know, the characters themselves, the stories they're in, etc. I appreciate the craft of it. You know, taking a lot of chairs and building these huge things out of it. But then, you know, when you get underneath that, it's like, but it might have been better had they not all been stacked also on top of one another, and you were able to see them kind of presented in a different way.
All right, crafty but not clever, I think is the assessment there. Our next three-dimensional finalist is a juror's pick called Pose System by Saya Wolflack, showing at the Grand Rapids Art Museum. The work includes video, painting, and brightly colored statues in various yoga poses. Kevin.
So the wall text on this one is interesting. It's visually a very rich, little display of several objects and videos. On the wall text, it talks about how the artist has created a fictional world of empathics, a race of women who are able to alter their genetic makeup to fuse with plants, and lots of other things about hybridity. So help us with this. This is an artist who's shown in a lot of other places. Does this little sort of slice of her practice, does it hold up? Gregory, you're nodding, yeah?
For me, totally. I think that it's like very thoughtful and investigative, inquiring, and bedazzling. One thing is that visual art tends to be visual, and this revels in its visuality. I think it's fascinating. My only one problem was with the display, which looked a little bit like something at a trade show. And in a way, I think they could have come out more. But I'm on the side of this artist.
Mm-hmm. I would have liked the cultural references to be a bit broader for me. For me, the cultural references are a little narrow, particularly given the subject matter. I would have liked to have seen some things drawn from a variety of cultures than seems to be referenced in the work. But like Gregory, I did appreciate this piece.
Alice, if you had 5 seconds to describe hybridity, could you do it? On television?
Yeah. Hybridity, recombinant DNA that has to do with gender, with race, but also with life and death. Several of the figures, two of the figures have like exoskeletons, and each of them has a skull next to their own head. Yeah. So I like this reference to creation and destruction, life and death, birth, all combined. And she's really looking to kind of give you a visual picture of a different kind of world, and that may be inside the artist's imagination rather than in our own reality.
And she's blending a lot of pre-modern culture.
The ancient.
All right, there we go. Many layers to Pose seems to be tickling the critics' fancy. All right, our last three-dimensional finalist before we take a short break is a public vote finalist known as Imagine If by Robin Protz, showing at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. This 12-foot by 18-foot sculpture creates the image of Pegasuses.
Pegasi.
It's multiple horses, multiple winged horses, with lightweight silver materials hung with monofilament line. Kevin, is it just another big shiny object, or is there something more to it?
Okay, so we've got ornamentation, we've got mythology, like we were just talking about. With Wolfpack, how does this one differ? Does it hold up? Yes, you guys are looking at me like.
Well, it's not clear, actually, that there is mythology invoked here. It's not even clear visually to me that they are Pegasus. In fact, I was here 3 years ago. I love ArtPrize. I couldn't wait to come back. And I thought the same thing was hanging in the same place. Another big, shiny object. I have to say, lightweight materials, it's lightweight.
Right. Gregory, Neil?
Sure. Well, we talked a little, there was a little talk about site-specific work last night. One thing I love about this work is above it, there's a chandelier. And so it's almost like it's gathered the splintered, bedazzling light of this chandelier into a sculpture. And I think it's really impressive. Also, it's moving. It's wonderful. My real problem is the Pegasus thing, which I think is not necessary with all this connection to giant myths and everything. I think it would have been a lot better if it's like humble, lovely animals, horses.
Horses would have been fine.
Yeah. wings not necessary.
Wings not necessary. But beautifully realized.
All right, there we go. So you're going to say lightweight materials, but lightweight execution with a Boss chandelier. Summarize that. Okay, there you have it. Now it's time for a short break. When we return, we'll be discussing the rest of the three-dimensional category on why these finalists. Stick around. Welcome back to Critical Discourse, where we're asking 3 art experts who we've imported to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and put them on live television to ask them the question, why? Why did the jurors and why did the voting public select these finalists? Let's keep the conversation going in the 3-dimensional category. Up next is a public vote finalist. It is a 16-foot mixed media sculpture with video titled 1,000 Shacks by Tori Snelling, showing at the Urban Institute for Contemporary Arts. It's a 3-dimensional shack collage, really. Kevin, explain.
So this thing is really monumental. People really love it. It's a really hub of a lot of activity in that venue. The artist in her writing about it talks about global poverty, the sort of kind of the favela aesthetic of it. What do you think? Does that topic resonate as you see it? Neil?
Very much so for me. I've traveled a lot in this in various parts of the world where this architecture is very present, and I really appreciated both the scale of what they're doing and the different kinds of architecture that are articulated within the piece, as well as the little film clips within showing the slice of life from those particular communities. I actually really love this piece.
Alice, yeah?
Yeah, I think she also references the labor that goes into the making of these, shelters, because she wants you to see the back of it. You can go around the back and see how it's put together. So her labor being done in homage to their labor. And I also really like inserting the video or film. It brings life. And she's saying that there is so much life. There's a variety of experience, of relationships that's happening in these places. And so don't judge them on the stereotype, on the assumption that it's only about poverty, because it's also about an affirmation of life and of creativity.
Right, and ingenuity. So the labor thing is interesting, because a lot of people ask artists, and we even saw signs today that were like, this took me 4,000 hours and this much material. It's just a really common trope in ArtPrize. So how do you think that this work speaks about its own labor maybe more successfully than others?
Because she's showing, not telling.
Right.
All right, with that, International Perspectives alive and well at ArtPrize this year. Okay, next up is a 3-dimensional jury award finalist titled Excavations by William Lamson, showing at Site Lab, the Rumsey Street Project. Excavations is an intervention into the concrete foundation and driveway of a former carriage house at 341 Franklin Street. The artist cut into the concrete with a diamond saw, removing the resulting forms and repositioning them around the site. Kevin, this time the found object is a driveway. Help us understand what the juror sees in this work.
So we saw a lot of work out at Site Lab. This is the piece that we're talking about tonight because it's on the jurors' shortlist event. But there's lots of cutting, lots of sort of architectural and structural intervention happening out there. How did this measure up to its surroundings? Gregory, let's start with you.
Well, first of all, I think that this is really an excellent work. It's in this, it's like easily forgettable, ignoble place, and it's just with subtlety, with cutting out sections, with other lines. It's I think it's just fantastic, inscribing this urban concrete place with a very subtle and driven poetics of sculpture and space. One thing that didn't make the cut is like an absolutely tour de force nearby sculpture, which I would praise to the high heavens by Julie Schenkelberg. Yeah. I completely love this work, and it's like rickety, it's intense, it's fantastic, it's visually enthralling, it connects with so many things. I would have given that all thumbs up.
That's great. Any other comments about Lamson's piece?
Oh, I feel like it's like, to me it felt like a gift that's going to keep on giving, because not only has he excavated forms that are very beautiful in sort of the history of minimalist sculpture, but also, the empty spaces that he's left from these excavations are there for things to grow. Whatever will grow there in the community, it will keep growing and changing within this landscape. I think that's really public art at its best.
All right, I don't know if I agree with that. If I gave my child a diamond saw in a driveway, I think he might have been able to cut a circle in it.
I think the artist was of age. It's okay.
I get that a lot at ArtPrize as well. So next up is the 3-dimensional public vote finalist Wounded Warrior Dogs by James Mellick, showing at the Amway Grand Plaza. It's a series of life-size wooden carved dogs who symbolize the same wounds as their human companions in battle. Kevin and panel, help us understand this one.
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. We've got wood carving, we've got dogs, we've got war. Lots of things blending together. Neil, let's start with you. What are your thoughts about this work?
Must you?
Yes. We talked about it so much at lunch. We like.
So what I suspect is what's happening with this piece in part is that they're kind of, titling it Wounded Warriors allows a lot of people to come to this work thinking about the incredible work that wounded warriors do throughout the country and throughout the world. And I think they're ascribing kinds of values and feelings to this piece that for me are just not there. I think that the dogs are well carved and crafted, but in general it kind of leaves me a little cold, certainly given the subject matter and certainly given what wounded warriors are and mean to our country as veterans, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm very disappointed in this work in a lot of ways.
Gregory, talk to me about like the idea of blending animals on the one hand and the idea of nationality.
Yeah, I mean,
war.
first I would say I greatly admire the skill and the expertise and all that. That's really evident. But from my perspective, and I spend a lot of time with this work, it's so limited or so relentlessly American in its focus when animals don't really belong to one nation or another. Like, for example, I bet it's not a great time to be a dog in Aleppo right now. I doubt it very much. And I think that inquiry into war and violence on animals is a great thing to pursue, but I think the artists stopped the inquiry at a really recognizable, understandable place, which is just focusing on the dogs of America.
Seems as though patriotism is trumping the potential of that message. All right, okie dokie. With that, we'll move along to our next juried award finalist. Set Output World, Called with a World of the Wrong Size. Called with a World of the Wrong Size by Kayla Anderson, showing at the Urban Institute for Contemporary Arts. It's a series of fabricated requillaries, object identification worksheets, and a navigable virtual terrain that highlight the double-edged sword of preservation in the history of plastic as a once utopian and now dystopian material. Kevin, what did I just say?
What did you say?
Well, we're back to fantasy, though, right? We're back to fantasy. We're back to fantasy worlds, and then also plastic. Let's talk about fantasy utopia. Plastic. What did you guys think of this work?
Well, I thought the fantasy aspect of it worked pretty well. I liked watching the video, which is software generated, and I thought clearly the artist has some skill in crafting these worlds. I actually thought that the reliquaries part of it was not necessary. I felt like I was in a science museum. They didn't tell me anything. They didn't like locate me within the world that she was creating. So.
Neil, did you feel like the objects related well to the projected?
I didn't need the objects, actually. I really was fascinated by the videos and the interaction that the software was able to create in the world that the artist was creating. But for me, the rest of it, while interesting, was again unnecessary. I would have rather have seen bigger, maybe, manifestations of these worlds surrounding me, and not so much the what went into making them.
Gregory, do you think that like fantasy world plus reliquary, is it just too much?
No, I think that's good, but I think the fantasy element of it could have been like increased. I was wondering why these places where one is allegedly transported to, these virtual spaces, are so like uninhabited.
Right.
I would like to I would be more interested in what those spaces really mean to the artist, and do they really need to be empty of characters? And
all right, it seems the artist could have taken another step further towards that dystopian highway. Okay, moving along, let's take a look at our last three-dimensional finalist, a juror's pick, Grand River by Francisco Pinheiro, showing at 50 Monroe Avenue, part of City Flux. Grand River is a sculpture made from plaster and silica sand, accompanied by a series of drawings representing the Grand Rapids community stacking sandbags to resist the Great Flood of 1904. Kevin.
So this is another work, very lowly material, kind of that unmonumental idea. You could mistake it for sort of a pile of concrete. But it has this specific historic reference. Did that work for you? Did that matter? Neil, let's start with you.
No. Not at all. I mean, I feel like this is a concept in search of a piece. in a way. I mean, I feel like there's just not enough here without the commentary to really make this into a work of art. So what you basically see is something that could be a number of different things, contextualized as the artist has, but the craft of it, the comment on it, the way that it kind of gives us more information about the subject matter from which it's drawn, none of that is there absent, you know, the small artist statement. I think they could have taken this perhaps much further, particularly now, being from a place that is really affected by, you know, floods and et cetera, and these are vital pieces of the landscape in some of those parts of the world. Where are those references? Where are those kind of textures to this kind of idea? Totally absent from me.
So, Alice, you're with your aunt, and she says, "Why is this pile of plaster art?" What do you say?
I think she's going to say, WTF. Why is this a finalist?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Again, not looking for a subject, but it's almost like an art. It gave us a source, a historical source. But when you're offering an artwork or creating artwork, you want a transformation to take place, or be able to go somewhere with it, not just say, well, it's 1903 and there's a flood.
Sure.
All right, without the artist's label, it loses its meaning, and without its meaning, it loses its value. Yeah? We're there? About right? Okay, try to sum that up. Okay, well, there you have it. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. When we return, we'll be discussing the 10 finalists in the time-based category. Stick around, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Let's dive right into the time-based category. The time-based category includes entries that are durational and change over time. The viewer has to spend time with the work to fully view it. This includes performance, video and film, dance, music, and interactive work. We'll be discussing 5 finalists selected by public vote, alongside 5 finalists selected by one art expert. Yosomi Umolu, exhibitions curator at the Riva and David Logan Center for the Arts at the University of Chicago. Our first time-based finalist is one of Yosomi's picks, entitled The Magnetosphere by Matthew Stanke, showing at the Fed Galleries at Kendall College of Art and Design of Ferris State University. Utilizing found objects, robotics, electronics, sound, and music, the work echoes the imagined feelings of kaleidoscope weightlessness in an oscillating orbit around the Earth. Kevin, that sounds like a trip.
I don't know about that. Well, but there are two distinct things being offered to the viewer, right? You have these objects that have their own appearance, and you have these sounds that fill the space. Gregory, what did you think about that relationship?
I think it's a very good relationship, because these are actually very enchanting little mini sculptures made out of, like, around the house seemingly throwaway stuff. That's really good. And then when you press the red button, they start springing into action with a rather enchanting and interesting music. And I thought, in a way, it's like time-traveling artwork, that it's like looking to outer space, but also goes back to, like, the 19th century and some kind of circus-like quality. So I think it's really good.
Alice?
I thought it was excellent, and I too felt like I was caught somewhere between the circus and the orchestra. The arrangement, the installation is very well done. You do visually sort of sense that you could be out in the atmosphere looking at all the space detritus, as well as the detritus you might find in your own backyard. You can. It's a sort of brilliant artist, tinkerer imagination at work.
A series of found objects, but this one you like. What's the difference between this one and the other pieces? The fact that it makes noise and moves? There has to be something more than that.
It's a profoundly different work, because the found objects are behaving in a different way. I go back to what I said before about the general and the specific. These are specific works, components made out of seemingly casual stuff, and they behave in that way with a real elegance. I mean, just using found objects doesn't mean that the works are similar. It's how the artist is reimagining what these objects are that makes the work either excellent or mediocre.
Very good, that makes sense. And now our next public vote time-based finalist, Higher Ground by Hildebrand and Mags Mazin at the Grand Rapids Art Museum. This video depicts artists along with their children embarking on an adventure to construct and fly a rocket ship made of duct tape, couches, boxes, pots, and pans, and fly it all the way to the moon. A fun one for sure. Kevin.
Yeah, so this one has been very popular. I love seeing popular video art in an art museum. That seems cool to me. Also, we're back to like DIY making, common materials. Talk to me about, Neil, what's the difference between presenting a video of this work and if they had put the giant junk rocket ship in the gallery? What's the difference in the effect there?
Well, it's a little bit more removed, for one, and I think actually I would have liked to have seen more of the actual objects that they've actually created, because I think there is some artfulness to that. For me, this is, I wish I was part of the family and going on the adventure than watching the video of it. And so, but in a way that does invite, everybody who's watching it to think about, do they have these moments with their family where they're looking at something on the screen and saying, well, maybe we should go do that in some way.
Yeah.
I am a little afraid the way they took apart their house, though. And then painted it silver. I don't know how they put their house back together. I'm a little concerned about that.
All right, inspiring and concerning for the family's home. And now a time-based jury award finalist, the Bureau of Personal Belonging by Pitch Night Durham winner Stacy Kirby, showing at 50 Monroe. The Bureau is an installation comprised of 3 ongoing works where visitors offer written and verbal responses as they interact with the artist and other performers within a meticulously recreated 60s-era bureaucratic office space. Visitors are taken through a process to determine if they are indeed valid members of our community. Kevin.
So this is a pretty complex and layered work where they've sort of reconstructed an office within an office. There's a lot going on here. There's sort of satire, but there's also some very real political action happening. Alice, tell me what you thought walking through there.
I actually think that this installation expresses and enacts the mission of ArtPrize very beautifully. The Bureau of Personal...
Explain that.
Okay, well, the Bureau of Personal Belonging. From the moment I read the title, I think there's nothing... That's what art does. It gives everyone a sense of belonging in a community wherever you come from. And this is an experience of going, when you come through there, engaging around questions around identity. Who gets to belong? Who doesn't? Who's allowed to go into which spaces in our world? Who is allowed to exercise certain rights? These are questions that are coming up in our political life, in our public life, and our private lives. And what Stacy Kirby has done is offered a safe space to start those difficult conversations.
Yeah. Neil, Gary,
I appreciated the detail and the level that this installation goes to express its idea. Everywhere you look, there is an attention to a detail about that particular expression of this idea that I think is quite remarkable. From the, the paneling to the cards that, you check in and out with. Everything about it, it's just so finely thought out, that I really appreciated that level of craft here.
All right, our next time-based finalist was selected by public vote, titled Emo, Sculpture, Time Capsule, and Temporary Home by Lauren Nagy at Kilwin's Chocolates and Ice Cream. Emo is an orb, 8 feet in diameter, constructed of, the artist calls it garbage, they didn't say found objects, from an abandoned house which serves as the artist's temporary home. That's right, the artist is actually living inside the artwork.
Yeah, so this is a work that also has a certain political bent to it. The artist is hoping to raise some awareness about homelessness. It also forms this dialogue with durational performance, which is sort of an art world term for things where the artist is putting themselves through something that takes a very long time. Gregory, what did you think about this?
Well, I think that lots of artworks these days are commenting on some important socio-political issue. This artwork is directly engaging a very pressing issue, like how is it possible in this unbelievably wealthy country that there's so much homelessness business. And not only that, because I talked with the artist about this, he's interested in actually having these made in different cities to quite literally provide shelter for homeless people. I don't think it's like the greatest sculpture that I've ever seen, but I absolutely applaud this moral, intense, and energetic engagement with a really important issue.
And also, if he wins in his category, he's going to donate the $20,000 prize towards homelessness to try to solve that problem too. I have to say that I liked the form of it.
Yeah?
I know it's an orb, but also, which reminds me of a geodesic dome, and I think
kind of
formal,
utopian.
Yeah. Utopian, portable, do it yourself.
There's something
All
about
right.
the
Neil,
notion
I'll
of
let you go over the belt. Go for it. Yeah.
There's also something about the notion of the found objects that kind of decorate, if you will, this particular object that, in the context of homelessness, I find very interesting. How homeless people have to collect a lot of the things that are personally relevant, resonant to them, and carry them with them to be able to adorn the orb in that way with those kinds of objects. There's something very poetic about that to me.
Very good. A meaningful piece indeed. All right, up next is Sweeper's Clock by Martin Boss, showing at the Grand Rapids Art Museum. It is the only finalist on both the public vote and juried award shortlists. It's a video that combines theater, art, and film and design in a 12-hour-long movie in which two performers replicate an analog clock by sweeping two piles of garbage, one for the hour hand and one for the minute hand, to indicate the time. Kevin.
So this is an artwork that does a thing where it represents an object, in this case a clock, but it also, in a very real sense, is that object because it functions as a clock. You can set your watch to it. It's always telling you the right time. Martin Boss is not the first artist to do that. He sort of joins some rarefied company who have done similar things. How do you think it holds up, Gregory?
And oh my gosh, it also involves found objects. It involves
more junk,
trash,
more trash,
which is oddly, because of this sort of bird's eye perspective, it's oddly lovely because you see this glinting color.
Yeah.
So there's something quite wonderful about it, and I think it's like excellent how it is really accurate, and you're seeing time passing. It slows you down. Here, by the way, one of the great things about contemporary art is how, in our fast-paced world, how it can slow one down, and so you can be patient and engaged with something. I think that's for sure what it does. I think it's very excellent.
Alice, did you like the clock?
Yes, very much. Yes, it slows us down. It makes us pay attention to the passage of time. But to be able to do that by a performance in which it's fairly, it's menial labor, cleaning up, sweeping up garbage and turning it into something beautiful, and then it becomes beautiful to watch. It also reminded me of land art, like of Robert Smith's Spiral Jetty, and that same kind of why would someone do this just to create, but it creates something beautiful in a moment you want to engage in. I was not surprised at all that people were drawn to it. And that conflation of the time of our lived reality with the time projected through an artwork is always a magical experience.
All right, there you go. It's both clever and beautiful. Stay with us. Critical Discourse continues right after this break, where we're going to talk about the time-based category and a bicycle combined with a fish. Welcome back to the Critical Discourse studio. Now, I know what you're thinking, that our furniture looks pretty awesome. And it does. Thanks to Hayworth, the official broadcast design partner of ArtPrize. All right, let's keep moving along. Only a few more finalists to go. Our next time-based finalist is another chosen by the public vote, Trout Bike by Andrew Rockwood. It's a 16-foot-long trout made of cardboard refrigerator boxes, paper mache, and old lawn chairs mounted on a bicycle. Last night we had sand sturgeon, today we have trout bike. Maybe WTF should stand for why the fish. Am I right?
Nice.
Kevin.
Okay, in my notes, I just have like a long string of question marks, so I'm just going to throw it to you, Alice.
And I'm going to quote one of my heroes, Gloria Steinem. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
What's
not fair.
But did she ever,
Great quote.
It's critical discourse.
but
It's
did
not
she ever
fair.
ask if a bicycle needs a fish? No. And this is what he's saying. A bicycle is the one that actually needs the fish, not the other way around. I don't know how that relates to her quote, though.
It's all I could think of to say, and it's a great reminder.
All right, this one, it is what it is. Okay, the next is the Juried Award finalist, Search Engine Vision, ISIS, by Eric Souther, also showing at the Urban Institute for Contemporary Arts. This piece opens with examples of the first 1,000 video results from a YouTube search of ISIS goddess. Kevin.
Yeah, so the artist is very topical, obviously, very political, talking about terrorism, kind of a scary subject, but also looking at language. He's searching ISIS on YouTube. He's also searching goddess Isis, which of course is the ancient Egyptian goddess of love and motherhood and things like that. Tell me about that. Do you feel like that came out in the work, in the video? Gregory, was it working for you?
Isn't ISIS also a Bob Dylan song?
Yes. Yes.
I think so. I once again admire the drive, the sort of special verve to carry this project so far. One thing that was perplexing to me is just how it's installed, that it's very hard to actually see the little, they're almost like thumbnails that came up, and those for me are really the magic of the work, because some of them are fascinating. Like, how did that happen in this search? So I think that could be developed further, because I think it's really excellent how this, like, ISIS goddess, ISIS terrorist, result in something much more perplexing and unusual and combinatory.
Yeah. And Neil, what did you think of the video?
I liked the video. I liked the way that it kind of showed how the various clips were being manipulated to create the kind of larger canvas that the work is on. I also appreciated just taking 1,000 different little clips of something on a topic and how they wove into fairly interesting, for me at least, piece of art. And I also was fascinated about the two different definitions of ISIS that are depicted in the picture. The one, goddess of love and what have you, and of course now how we associate that word in terms of terrorism, etc., and marrying those two together to come up with this piece.
All right, a successful work, but maybe a step short of excellent. All right, next we have a time-based public vote award finalist titled Hoot by Laurel Bay at the Courtyard Marriott downtown. Over 700 ArtPrize visitors have painted with the artist using acrylic paint to create a series of owls, and no shortage of owl puns. Kevin, is it a hoot or should we give it the boot?
Oh, come on. Okay, so this is paintings, obviously, but there's this performance element where she's inviting visitors to interact and to paint these works. Alice, you look very skeptical. Tell me what you saw at the hotel
Telling
today.
people exactly what to do, as in, here's a yellow pen, please make 3 circles in this space, is not inviting interaction. Doing a series of owls, we would need to know why. Owls have lots of meanings. We can't just deploy images of animals without having some context, some history, some information about why this is happening. And I think that the category time-based we found is really wide-ranging and sometimes confusing,
Yeah.
but that's not performance.
Fair enough. Gregory?
However the artist reached the owls, like painting on her own or working with other people, she still arrived at owls. And the owls that are presented are really sweet. They're lovely. They're so nice. They're wise. They're good. But earlier I was researching, and I went online, and so I was researching owls, like what they really do. And it's really quite something else. I mean, they swoop down from a branch and grab the cute little furry rodent and take it back and gnash it to bits. Yeah. And that's how they really operate. And what profoundly limits this work for me, I think, is this really sweet approach to nature. Like, it's all good out there.
Yeah. So you're suggesting, Gregory, that it's potentially an owl PR strategy, that they're controlling the artist, change the way that owls are perceived, one person at a time.
Exactly what I'm suggesting.
That's why they're going after the children. It's owl indoctrination is what's going on there. All right, we're coming to our last finalist of the night. Our last time-based finalist is Bang Bang by Constance Edwards Scopelitis, showing at the City Water Building by the Richard App Gallery. The entry uses animated video and sound to shed light on gunplay as a universal expression of natural human aggression and the need for gun policy reform. Bang Bang is a juried award finalist. Kevin.
So this piece, it's a flat panel with a video, headphones. There's also a drawing there. Neil, do you feel like the drawing was needed? What did you think of the video?
I think the drawing is unnecessary, frankly, but I do think that the actual simplicity of the message and the piece itself is actually quite powerful. I guess what I would have liked to have seen more is more of the culture in which this sort of gun problem is operating and less of the pop nature of it. So the sort of bang and all of that. I would have liked to have seen it kind of taken another 1 or 2 steps further to really talk about the effect of gun violence, in our society, how it's working, and particularly, since they've used the voices of children, how that is affecting young people in particular might have been a theme that they could have excavated more to make this an even more powerful piece. But I love the simplicity of it, but I don't need the picture.
Well, and also because what you hear is real children's voices playing a game. I'm going to kill you, bang, bang, I'm going to get you. But then when you hear the sounds of gunshot, it actually sounds like the soundtrack from a video game.
Right.
So if the intent of the piece is to raise awareness about the real dangers and the real cost of gun violence in this country, then it would have been much more impactful to use something that doesn't sound like a soundtrack, a manufactured kind of soundtrack.
All right, well, there you have it. Let's hear it for our panelists. That is a wrap. We are all out of time on Critical Discourse Why These Finalists. Remember, voting is open. You can cast your votes for the public vote until 11:59 on Thursday, October 6th. Come down to register, get your bag, and vote for your favorites. And if you want to find out who will win the $500,000 in prizes, this Friday, Wood TV 8 at 7 o'clock. Thanks so much for watching Why These Finalists. We'll see you next year.